Hi everyone, Charlene here. Today we are going to make 2 cards using the Simon Says Stamp January card kit. This kit is so much fun. I was really excited to get it because it has so many goodies in it. That first thing on top there is some Hampton Art Studio G pink self-adhesive gems, and then we have some exclusive SEAFOAM Glitz glitter gel. There are 2 included envelopes, one in doll pink and one in white. And here we have a beautiful faceted snowflakes embossing folder and this lovely double-sided paper from La La Land Crafts. It's called Starry Night. All of these beautiful patterns. I love this paper so much. In addition to the double-sided paper, we have a beautiful 6x6 stencil. It's the scattered snowflake stencil. And then we also have a lovely stamp set, a 6x8 clear stamp set. So cute, with trees and snowmen and presents and little snowflakes and some really lovely sentiments, which I'm going to show you later. There's always an included project inspiration sheet and then a few sheets of cardstock. In this pack there is a sheet of soft navy, dull pink, and lavender, as well as one piece of Neenah. So let's get started. For our first card, I'm starting out by taping down an A2 sized panel. It's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm just taping it to my work surface so it doesn't move around because I'm actually going to use that really pretty snowflake stencil. I'm going to tape it down on 2 sides. This is just how I prefer to work with stencils. It's not the only way you can tape them, it's just how I like to do it. And I'm going to use peacock feathers today. And you can see there I got a new set of brushes for the holidays, so I was pretty excited about that. So I've sped up my ink blending here. You can see I'm kind of going at super speed, but that's because I want to get through both cards today and I want you to be able to see all of these fun techniques. So I'm just going around and making sure I have the entire panel covered, and I'm adding a few darker patches here and there. Once I get the color how I like it, I'm going to go ahead and take off the stencil, and then I'm going to do a really fun trick. I am going to take some Post-it tape and I'm actually going to make some diagonal lines on the back of the stencil with the Post-it tape. And you may be wondering what the heck I'm doing here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to then put the stencil back in the same position, tape it down, and we are going to use some of that beautiful SEAFOAM Glitz glitter gel. Now this is a fun technique because you could also actually go in with another color. You could do all kinds of different fun things by covering up parts of your stencil. So this is just another way to get more out of your supplies. I love always trying to figure out new and different ways to try and use my products, especially with stencils. They have such a low price point and they are so versatile. I love them. So you can see there I took a paper towel and I just lightly wiped down the top of my stencil, and that's just so I didn't get any ink into my Glitz glitter gel. And now I'm just mixing it up. It's so pretty, and when it dries you guys are going to see it's really lovely. So I'm just running it over the entire stencil, a pretty decent sized coating, because you can always scrape up the extra and put it back into your jar like I'm doing there. I got everything covered and now I'm just kind of smoothing it out, making sure there is a nice even coating. And you really don't lose too much where you're going over the Post-it tape. I know people are always concerned they don't want to use up all of their gel, but really you don't lose very much at all. So once you get a nice even coating, you're going to go ahead and slowly peel up your stencil, and you are going to see where the Post-it tape was. You're going to get a line that shows that underlying inking that we did. So it just looks really cool because you see the white through the gel where the stencil marks are all the way through the card, but then you have these really pretty SEAFOAM stripes of the Glitz glitter gel. So once you pull up your stencil and you pull up your card, I like to run my palette brush over and around the sides just to clean up any little bits of Glitz glitter gel that get stuck. So I've set that off to the side to dry, and now I'm coming in with another panel of cardstock, and I am stamping with pigment ink. So I'm stamping with black pigment ink, and the reason I'm doing this is because I am trying out a really fun technique where you actually run your stamped panel through your die cutting machine with an embossing folder. And I saw this, I'll link below to, I saw another crafter do this online, and I thought it was a really, really cool project. So I'll link below in the description to that as well. So once you get that stamped on there, you're gonna go ahead and put your panel down in your embossing folder. Just be careful when you're doing that because the pigment ink is still wet. And you're gonna see why that's important because we're gonna run it through, and then afterwards we are going to still be able to heat emboss the ink with clear embossing powder. So for my die cutting machine, this is the sandwich that works really well. I just use the platform and then the embossing folder and then 2 pieces of cardstock. And that gives me just the right amount of pressure. For your individual machine, you're going to want to play around and see what works best for you. So once you've done that, just be careful again when you're taking your piece of cardstock out of the embossing folder because that ink is still wet. So I'm coming in with just some clear embossing powder, and I am putting that all over the image there and tapping it off, and then I'm heating it with my heat gun, and you can see it really makes that sentiment and the snowman just pop because they have a little bit of shine, but you can still see the embossing. I love it so much. Coming in here with a stitched rectangle die from Simon Says Stamp. If you watch any of my videos, you know this is a favorite of mine. Lots of different companies make this stitched rectangle die. So certainly if you are a big fan of another company, there are other companies out there that make that die as well. So I did the same thing for the panel with the Glitz glitter gel. I let it dry first, and then I ran it through my die cutting machine with that stitched rectangle die in a larger size. And I just have a piece of craft EVA foam that I have cut out, and I'm adhering that to the back of that main panel so that I can get some dimension. It's going to pop off the card base. For the card base, I used a top folding A2 size card base, and I'm just going to adhere that on there. I'm using some dot runner for my adhesive on this card. You also could use glue. I do like to use dot runner, or I use Gina adhesive glue for any of this type of work. If I'm working on gluing together fine sentiments, I like to use art glitter glue. So lots of different adhesives on the market. I've tried a ton of them, and those are the 3 that I like to use the most: the dot runner, the Gina Connect glue, and the art glitter glue. So again, now I'm going to adhere my little Happy Thoughts Your Way panel, that little snowman. Oh, so cute. And getting it just where I like. And when I do this style of card, I like to try and let the topmost panel kind of hang off. It just adds a little bit more interest to the card. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a Derice foam adhesive strip there, and I'm just going to kind of wedge it in. I could have done this before I put the panel on the card, but you know, didn't think about it until actually I had already adhered it down. So I'm just going to kind of pop it in there on the side, get it so where it's not showing, and then I'm going to trim it with some scissors, and then I can go in with my tweezers and pull off the other side of the release paper and stick it down. And that way it won't get bent if it goes through the mail or anything like that. Here I'm coming in with those reverse tweezers. What a handy tool. I use those guys all the time. They're a workhorse in my craft room. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to pull that out there and push it down, and there we go. So now the main part of the card is all put together. I am coming in with some stickles, some glitter stickles, and I'll link down below to all of the supplies that I'm using in the description. So if you have any questions about anything, just going around, and I'm going to dot several different places on the card just to give a little bit more shine and glitter. You know, I love my bling on my cards. So I hope you guys are enjoying this. If you are, please do hit the like and subscribe button, as well as that notification bell. It really does help my channel, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys. So I love to do this. I love to keep the scraps when I use these stitched rectangle dies, and now I like to try and put them inside my card. It's just an added little detail on the inside of the card. And so what I'm doing, I'm just adhering one little part of it, and then I'm going to cut off the edges. So that way when you open the card, you get a little hint of those snowflakes and that pretty glitz glitter gel on the inside of the card as well as on the outside. I think it just adds a nice little finishing touch to the inside of your card. So once I have that there, and just be careful, I was working with my stickles while they were still wet, so I was extra careful when I was putting that in there. The smart move would probably be to let it all dry before you do that, or to do it before you put the stickles on, but you know, sometimes you just gotta roll with it. So now coming into my second card, I'm going to show you guys a really fun technique. First, I'm coming in with some Copic friendly ink. That's the Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink I'm using right there. And I'm stamping on an A2 size card panel. And I do go ahead and double stamp this just because I want to get a nice dark line, so that way it's easy for me to see where I need to color. It doesn't matter too much if this is perfect, because we are actually going to do a fun technique later on, which is why it's important to make sure to clean off your stamp and not remove them from your stamping platform. You will need a stamping platform for this technique. So off camera, I colored in my little snowman and my presents and everything, and it looks super cute. And now I'm coming in with my anti-static powder tool, and I've just dusted the entire panel because I'm going to use my embossing ink here. And again, I am going to double stamp with the embossing ink as well. And I'm going to heat emboss over the top of my image. This is one of those unnecessary but added steps that really make a card pop, because then you have the beautiful coloring and you also have the beautiful shine of the embossing powder on those lines of the stamp. I love it so much. I definitely recommend this double stamping. I think it's really important when you are adding embossing powder to make sure you have a really good coating of the embossing ink to make sure it all sticks. So now I've got my Ranger Super Fine Detail embossing powder in black, and I'm just sprinkling it over the whole panel. This embossing powder does tend to stick to cards. I have noticed that over time. Maybe it's just me, but I generally tend to get it all over my cards. So I always keep a dry flathead brush, a paintbrush, that I can then use to go around and brush off the embossing powder. And you just brush and lightly blow on your panel and it comes off really well. So now I've come in with my heat tool and I'm just going over this until the embossing powder is all melted, and you can already see there it just really makes everything pop. I love how that looks so much. Coming in again with my stitch rectangle dies, and I'm just going to cut this panel out, make sure I tape it down so I can ensure it is nice and straight. And now I'm going to use a Copic multi-liner. I love these, I use them all the time. And I'm just going to draw in my grounding line to make it look like a snowbank. I have just cut a piece of cardstock with scissors to kind of create a wiggly line. And now I'm going in with the Copic multi-liner and I'm just drawing that line in, being careful to stop wherever the embossing is at. So you can see as soon as I pull that piece of paper up, what a difference it makes to ground your stamps. Now I'm coming in with some of my C1, which is a really light gray. I like to use this for shadowing when I am working on anything that's supposed to represent snow. I think it works really well. And I'm just going around the bottom of the snowman there and around the bottom of the presents. So Here in just a moment, you guys get to see my giant boo-boo of the day. I got everything all ready and I was so excited and was about to stamp some snowflakes, and I somehow got ink all over my card panel. After a few choice words and a little bit of reflection, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go in and I am going to fussy cut out my images, and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to make this card work. And you know what? It works out wonderful. I went ahead and fussy cut these out. Took a little bit of time, but I did it. And then I cut out a new panel, and I just coming in with some of that Gina K Connect glue, and I am adhering down the presents and the snowman to the new panel with the new line that I have drawn. And once I get those on there in a nice position, I am going to come in with that Copic marker and just add my shadowing back in. And you almost can't tell. Almost. If you look really close, you can tell. In particular, there was a spot where I did add a little bit more of the gray Copic marker onto the snowman to kind of mask the ink. And in a few minutes here, I finally locate the culprit of the ink fiasco. So you're going to see, always make sure to watch where your ink pad is going. I don't even know how I did it, but somehow or other, I got black ink on the handle of my Misty door. And when I was going to stamp snowflakes onto the panel, I touched that door and then I touched the card, and that's where that darn black ink came from. So there it is. I found it. So I'm just making sure to wipe that off really well. And I'm using my Lawn Fawn chamois, which I love. I use that to clean my stamps. So you can see I'm adding these snowflakes here, and I'm using Distress Oxide in Broken China. I normally like to use Stormy Sky for my skies, but I thought this was such a brightly colored card that I thought the Broken China would look really nice as the snowflakes. So I'm just coming in, getting those stamped down. Generally, the Distress Oxide works really well for these small kinds of stamps. I love it. Only takes one stamping. And now I'm going to go ahead and adhere my panel down to some of that super cute La La Land Crafts double-sided paper. I'm almost had to cover it up because it is such pretty paper, but I love having that little border around my panels when I'm using patterned paper. This one is a snowflake pattern, and it just really finishes off the card well, I think. So once I have that down, I'm going to go ahead and adhere the extra little strip that I had left over from my sheet. I cut it down to about 1 inch, and I'm going to adhere that on the inside of that card. Again, another simple little thing that you can do. Whatever kind of scraps you have left over from your paper, think about if you can use them on the inside or even on the back of your card to add just a little bit more to your card. I think it's just such a nice, fun, added little detail. So now I'm going to adhere the panel onto my card base. And when I have a full panel like this, because that pattern piece is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, what I like to do is either use my Misty or my Score Buddy as a corner, and that helps me ensure that I get a nice straight alignment and that my card panel is fully even on the card base, if that makes sense. So I got it on there, pushed down, and it looks great. So now those cute little sentiments I was telling you about at the very beginning, this one says, "We're so far apart and I wish we were closer so I could hug you." I thought that was so sweet, and I added one on the inside of the other card as well, which says, "Sending you and yours the warmest and most love-filled wishes ever." This card, all right, guys, there are the 2 cards. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you make some cards, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye.